Cross choke from guard. So to set this up, we need to break my opponent's posture so that I can get this hand deep in the collar, okay? If I can't break the posture, I can just shrimp out here, sit up to my elbow and feed that hand in nice and deep, and then I can sit back and break the posture that way as well. So just kind of your basic generic break the posture. I'm going to swim under the hands, pull the legs, and then trap the head and arm here. Okay. From here I can start opening the collar, feeding the hand in. You'll notice that I can only feed the hand so deep if I stay here. I really like to feed this hand, this initial hand, as deep as I can get it this direction. So in order to do that, I'm going to shift my weight or shift my body to the side here, and that will allow me to shoot that hand in deeper. I really want the back of my hand against his spine. That will give me the best posture control here. If my hand isn't blocking the back of his head, he can posture up pretty well. But as soon as my hand goes behind his neck, I'm going to make a boot here with my hand, and that's going to prevent his head and neck from posturing here. So if he tries to posture from here, that control is a lot better, okay? So I'm not just going to stay here. I can only feed my hand so far, but by shifting, I can shoot that hand a lot farther now. So opening the collar, feeding that hand in, and pulling that slack out, okay? And I'm making a nice deep grab with my fingers here and really kind of grabbing, folding that material up onto the knee to get a nice handful of material. From here, because I've shifted all the way over here to grab deep this direction, I'm going to do the same thing to put the next hand in. So I'm going to shift my weight all the way over to the other side now, okay? And we have two variations here. We have palm down, palm up. Palm up is generally going to be tighter, but it's a little harder to get because I have to pass my hand right through his defenses. He has both hands here to stop this, okay? If I can get this hand in, like I said, it generally makes for a tighter choke. So I'm going to switch to this grip so you can see, setting this up, shifting, going under, 4 fingers in, as deep as I can get that, okay? If I can touch my thumbs together here, that's pretty tight, okay? You won't always be able to, but that's what we're going to try and reach for, is just try and get those thumbs as close together as possible. And you can see how that tightens things up. If they're far apart, there's a lot of space. Thumbs come together, there's not a lot of space, okay? So I'm shifting. When I lift here to feed this under, I can catch his chin here and really open up his neck. So the little tip there is kind of flare the elbow out here and catch his chin to open up some space here. 4 fingers in, okay? I'm going to grab, I'm going to pull his head to my chest, and then I'm going to apply the choke, okay? One of the most common mistakes I see is people start to try and apply the choke out here, and then they forget to pull the head to the chest. Anytime I start to choke away from my body, I'm not using my back muscles as much. So I want to engage my back in this as much as possible. So before I start to put any energy in my hands and arms into this, I'm going to pull his head to the chest first. And that will significantly decrease the amount of energy wasted by using the arms. Okay? So 1, open, 2, head to chest. I'm pulling with my legs as well. And now I'm going to shave my elbows across my ribs, trying to touch my elbows to my spine, okay? So you can see how the elbows can only go so far before they touch the mat. So by puffing your chest up into this, I can actually pull my elbows farther back than I can if I just lay flat. So you can see here, I can only pull so far, okay? But by puffing here, it really puts a lot more of your back muscles into that. So focus on pinching the elbows instead of pulling with the hands, okay? If you focus too much on the hands, you're gonna start burning out your grip. But just let your elbows and your back do all of that work, okay? So the last thing to really talk about here is what happens in the hands. And we talk about that last because that should be the last thing you use. I've set up the deep grips, I've pulled the head to the chest, I've started pulling with the elbows, and then, and only then, do I start to engage the hands and wrists. So my hands are basically facing me. I'm going to tighten that grip. I'm going to pull my hands towards myself and down, okay? So that's the movement there, towards, down. And that will really press the bones, the radius, into the neck, okay? So the majority of the time, that is just to take some slack out, okay? Don't let that be the finisher, okay? The finisher is the elbows, okay? This is just to take the slack out. I see a lot of people overemphasize this and they make that the finish. That's not the finish. This is the finish, okay? So I've gotten to this point, I've pulled his head down, I've pulled with the elbows, and then I start taking some of that slack out, okay? Even though that's the last thing we'll kind of do, and really we're kind of pulling the elbows and pulling with the hands at the same time, but emphasize the elbows. I can't say it enough. So one common mistake here, maybe the most common mistake with this, is we want to try and flare the elbows here to put pressure on the opponent's neck. And part of the reason that this is such a common mistake is that it works. It just doesn't work very well. It's easy to defend against, and you're going to burn out your grip. So if I set up deep grips on this, I pull the head to the chest, and then I flare the elbows, he'll tap, okay? And sometimes that's the worst thing that can happen when we use a bad technique, is that it works, because it reinforces that bad behavior. And so the issue with this is I'm using all arms. By not pulling with the elbows, I'm not using my back at all anymore. It becomes all arms. So if it works, and great, but when it doesn't, now you've got burned out grips and your opponent passes your guard and smashes you. Okay, and we all hate that. So don't flare the elbows. If he just pushes my elbows back down when I'm doing this, I've got nothing now, okay? I can't flare the elbows anymore. I can start to pull, and now it'll work, okay? But by flaring the elbows, I'm really helping him regain his posture as well. And so we talked about how I need to bring his head to my chest. Any cross choke, head to chest, okay? By flaring the elbows, I prevent his head from coming into my chest. So one of the easiest ways to defend against the cross choke is, or at least to buy you time in the cross choke, is if Josh just posts and keeps his posture, okay? So if I set this up and Josh just posts and I can't bring his head to my chest, it's very difficult to finish this, okay? And if I start flaring my elbows, I'm not breaking his posture down. So I need to pull with my arms and legs and get his head to my chest. Now I can finish the cross choke. So, order of importance: 1, Deep hands. Deep hands are going to set up everything. If I start with shallow hands, I can do everything else correctly, and I'm not going to get this choke. Okay? So, build a good foundation on this move. The foundation is deep hands. 1, 2. Second thing, head to chest. I'm pulling with my hands and my legs. Boom. 3, pull with the elbows, puff the chest, and then tighten with the hands. So the thumb down variation is the one that you're probably going to use the majority of the time. And the reason is, it's just a lot easier to set it up. It's not as tight as going palm up, but it's a lot easier to set up that second grip because it's harder for him to defend against it. When we go under, I'm passing right through his hands. But if I grab the wrinkle, I can go behind the head, or I can press his face away here. So I'm shifting to the side, setting up the initial grip. You can see how I'm pulling that slack out of the collar. I'm going to shift my body to the other side, and the fingers in the collar here are going to create a wrinkle here. If there's no wrinkle there, I can just make one. I'm going to pull the material until I have a wrinkle. I want to grab the wrinkle as close to the spine as possible. When I grab the wrinkle farther out, I'm going to really exaggerate this and grab clear out on the shoulder here. You can see how my forearm's not even close to his neck here. Okay? So by grabbing the wrinkle close to the spine, that pressure is already in the neck. Okay? So even just grabbing halfway down, there's about 1 inch of space there. So grab that as close as possible. I'm going to cut that under his jawline by tucking the elbow, pulling the head and legs. Okay, pulling the head into the chest, and then I'm going to shave the ribs with the elbows, puffing the chest. So the first hand's going to go in normal, taking the slack out, I'm shifting, grabbing the wrinkle, but because I'm palm down, I've got to pull the hand away from the face and expose the ulna on this choke. So with the palm up, I'm going to expose the radius by pulling the hands away. This choke, I'm going to expose the radius and the ulna. The hands are still going to pull away from the head. This one is just facing the opposite direction. So don't overcomplicate this. The easiest way to think of it is I'm always going to pull the hands away from the neck. So setting up, shifting, grabbing the collar, cutting under the chin, pulling the head to the chest, shaving the elbows, and pulling the hands away from the head. So sometimes when I'm trying to set up this palm down choke, it gets a little difficult because you can see that when I put this hand on top of his shoulder, it's not under his chin. Okay, it usually goes almost right across his teeth here. So in order to get that under his chin, we've got to really dig under here. So especially if this person's kind of tucking and hiding their chin, it can be a little difficult here. So I'm always going to set it up by lifting here, and that will allow me to scoop under. I'm going to drop this arm and replace it with this arm. Okay? So first hand's in, shifting, grabbing the wrinkle. He's tucking his chin, turning his head in, kind of tucking his chin into this space here. Okay? And depending on how nice you want to be, we can really start prying his head out of there. So you can see when I reach, if he tucks his head really far, it's kind of on his temple here. So I know it's kind of a jerk thing to do here, but you can technically catch him on the eye socket, the cheekbone, and then the jawbone. So it's kind of like a ratchet here in that we're using some of these bony parts of his head to really pry his head out, going eye socket, cheekbone, chin. So it's not always the nicest thing to do, and sometimes we can just tuck right down to the chin. When I train, I don't go for these, but they are there. But at the very least, I'm going to try and lift his chin up as much as possible with this arm, and then this one can come under. I'm keeping my forearms together and dropping them both at the same time. So if it's tucked really deep, again, we can kind of ratchet here. It's not the nicest thing to do. But once the forearms come together, I'm lifting his chin with the bottom arm and then catching under by dropping my elbows and pulling him in. And you can see, I'll do that in really slow motion, how that pops under his jawline right there. And then I can pull head to chest, shade the ribs, puff the chest, and complete as normal.